This man is incredibly arrogant. As soon as he was brought into the hospital, he started pointing at the doctors and calling them a bunch of stupid pigs. The doctors didn't want to argue with him because he was a well-known influencer and infamous for being a terrible person. He continued to make outrageous remarks, criticizing the doctors for being dirty and refusing to let them touch him, so they decided to ignore him. No one wanted to treat him. A few of his brainless fans rushed into the hospital, even bringing guns, and they threatened the director, warning that if anything happened to their idol, there would be serious consequences. The director didn't want any trouble, so he called in the hospital's top doctor, Kane. The man had a tumor in his head. Kane just needed to treat him and send him on his way. But when Kane arrived at the room, he faced the man's racist attitude. The influencer looked down on the doctor. Kane didn't back down either, mocking the man as a weak, ignorant fool. After their argument, Kane was ready to leave. Just as he stepped out of the room,
"Wait, please!"
the man called him back. When Kane turned around, the arrogant man had vanished, replaced by someone who looked pitiful, begging for help. It turned out he had dissociative identity disorder, and for a long time, his body had been dominated by his bad personality. Now he hoped the doctor could help him regain control of his body and eliminate the bad personality forever. After examination, they found that the pressure from the tumor was causing hardening in his blood vessels, which was the reason for his dissociative identity issues. Removing the tumor could eliminate the bad personality. Still angry, Kane ignored hospital procedures and prepared to operate immediately to eliminate the bad personality. But just then, the bad personality took over again, refusing the surgery and demanding to be discharged. Kane's temper flared, and he declared, "You must go through with this today." He injected the man with ketamine, and he instantly lost consciousness. Then the surgery began. When the director found out, he rushed over to stop it, and Nicole urged Kane to be reasonable, but Kane wouldn't listen. He continued with the surgery, which was successful. After a while, the man woke up, and when Kane arrived at the room, he was stunned. The influencer was still the same arrogant jerk. At that moment, Kane realized that the good personality was actually a result of the tumor. He had just killed a good person. A malicious arson incident occurred at a wedding, resulting in a stream of injured victims being rushed to the hospital. Dr. Bloom was treating a slightly injured mother, while her daughter, Lily, who was the flower girl, was fortunately unharmed. She told Lily not to worry and that everything would be okay, but Lily stared blankly and didn't respond. Dr. Bloom asked her multiple times without any reply, so she quickly called Iggy to help check on the girl. In the examination room, Lily still wouldn't respond. The doctor noted that the reports showed she had no physical injuries, but must have experienced a significant shock. The girl continued to expressionlessly repeat the doctor's questions.
Lily, do you think I can ask you some questions?
Lily, I need you to try to stay with me, please.
Please.
Leading him to tell her mother that Lily likely had acute stress reaction and needed to be hospitalized immediately. After some rest, Iggy visited Lily's room, but she still wouldn't speak. So, Iggy decided to play a game with her, providing a bunch of dolls to recreate the wedding scene. He asked Lily to reenact what happened to see if they could gather any helpful information. There were dolls for the officiant, flower girl, father of the bride, groom, and bride. Lily put the arsonist next to the groom. Just as Iggy was about to ask for details, Lily picked up the bride's doll and pointed to herself, then asked,
Is he okay?
Who?
My husband?
What Lily revealed made all the doctors feel angry and sick. To legally arrange a child marriage, Lily's mother had driven to West Virginia to obtain a legal marriage certificate for her. Everyone present at the wedding supported the marriage, except for Lily's 15-year-old brother, who threw a smoke bomb at the wedding to save his sister, accidentally causing the fire. In the end, despite the farce of the wedding, only Lily faced punishment. This mischievous boy is about to cause a big disaster. He's actually playing hide-and-seek in a hospital, and he chose the most dangerous place, the radiation zone. When his mom returns from pouring water and can't find him, she realizes something is very wrong. She quickly seeks help from the doctors. Meanwhile, the curious boy has no idea how dangerous it is there. The only staff member in the basement nearly spots him, but he cleverly avoids her gaze. Unaware that he's missed his only chance, he disregards the warning signs on the door, opens it, and curiously surveys the room. He might think that hiding there means his mom won't find him, but what he doesn't know is that unknown gases are being released from the vent. In the hospital, the medical staff are frantically searching. Dr. Conrad hears someone saw a child enter the basement and rushes over. However, the basement is vast, making the search difficult. He finds the only staff member, and together they start looking for the boy. When they arrive at the room where the boy is, Conrad suddenly urges her to stop, but it's too late. Alarms sound throughout the hospital. When the dean learns that the proton beam accelerator room has exploded, he's stunned. When Conrad wakes up, the fire is already raging, and the colleague is injured and lying helplessly on the ground. Conrad makes his way to the ruined room and finds the boy. He wants to move the boy to safety, but the only door out has been damaged in the explosion. He can only tell the people outside to evacuate quickly, as another explosion could level the hospital. Meanwhile, the colleague awakens and slowly drags her bloodied body. She finally gets the fire extinguisher, but she's too weak. Conrad rushes to take the extinguisher from her. He put out the fire. just as he was about to leave with his colleagues. Fortunately, rescuers arrived just in time, breaking down the door and allowing the two unconscious individuals to escape. When Conrad wakes up, he's in terrible shape, but he's the least injured of the three. This divorced woman had a miscarriage, but she claims she hasn't had sex in a year, which confuses her. Given the hormone levels, something's definitely off, so Dr. House starts questioning her story. Then he finds a hickey on her neck, but the woman said it was a bruise. He pulled out a piece of her hair to test it, and then said,
"You're lying, or I'm wrong."
He explains, you might have had sex without knowing it, so he plans to test her for alcohol, drugs, and PHB.
What's GHB?
The date rape drug.
The results come back, showing no PHB, alcohol, or drugs. House insists she's lying. She definitely had sex. But she insists she's honest and mentions a rash on her butt. House checks it out and realizes it's from friction with the carpet. She says that can't be right. He then asks if she's experienced any short-term memory loss, multiple personalities, or if she's ever woken up forgetting what happened the day before. She explains she's just been waking up tired because her ex-husband downstairs keeps calling her to reconcile, which has disturbed her sleep. House decides to have her stay overnight for a sleep study. The machine detects her brainwaves and shows she has sleepwalking disorder. This not only explains her fatigue, but also why she got pregnant. House concludes that the hickey and rash suggest she has sleep-sex disorder. This also explains why her ex-husband inexplicably wanted to remarry her. This condition appears completely normal to others, so her ex-husband surely believed she was the one initiating advances. A woman had been dealing with abdominal pain for 3 days during her pregnancy. After years of struggling to get pregnant, she finally was, and she and her husband were over the moon, believing it was a miracle. Their prayers had finally been answered. When Dr. Manning asked why she had trouble getting pregnant before, the woman mentioned it might be due to the shape of her uterus. Dr. Manning said they'd need to do more tests. Intern Curry thought it might be an ectopic pregnancy and was planning to explain the situation to the woman. But Dr. Manning called her out of the room, saying there was no need to give the patient a lecture on physiology until they had the test results. They had the right to believe it was a miracle, and the doctors only needed to tell the patient about the specific medical findings. Sure enough, the ultrasound showed it was an ectopic pregnancy. The doctors advised her to have a termination, or she could be in serious danger. However, the woman insisted this was a miracle baby, saying God would take care of it. She refused to have the surgery. Then Dr. Charles tested the pregnant woman. He said she did well on the brief mental status examination. She had strong beliefs and was very rational. But Curry argued that thinking God could save a baby with zero chance of survival was just delusional. Dr. Charles countered that as doctors, their job was to save patients while respecting their culture, beliefs, and spirituality, so they should respect the woman's decision. During their break, Charles and Curry started chatting. She was working on a new paper from her school, MIT, completely ignoring Charles's clarifications about their differing views. Suddenly, the woman began to bleed heavily, and surgery became urgent. But she still disagreed. Her 12-year dream was finally coming true, and she didn't want to give up or let down God. Curry then asked if she'd agree to the surgery if the fetus died. After some probing, the woman finally said that if that happened, she'd go ahead with the surgery. Dr. Manning was really unhappy about this. She criticized Curry's hypothetical questions as inappropriate. Her questioning wasn't pre-preparation. It was purely to frighten her patient. Then the woman started bleeding even more. Dr. Manning urged her to have the surgery. Just when things were tense, Curry mentioned that the ultrasound showed the fetus no longer had a heartbeat. In a critical moment, the woman finally agreed to the surgery. After the operation, Dr. Manning discovered that the fetus actually had a heartbeat during the surgery. Maybe the ultrasound machine was faulty. Seeing the woman in tears, Dr. Charles seemed to sense something was off. He confronted Curry, asking her directly why she tampered with the machine. Curry insisted she had no evidence that she did. And besides, the patient was ultimately saved. The machine malfunction wasn't the main issue. Dr. Charles pressed her on why she was so opposed to honoring the patient's wishes from the start. Her actions could be considered a crime. This could even get her expelled, as she hadn't upheld the most basic ethics of being a doctor.